After years of controversy,
SeaWorld stock hit a record low.
The last killer whale born in captivity at SeaWorld has now died.
The human equivalent would be sticking a human being in a bathtub.
SeaWorld has always been seen as a family-friendly and uplifting amusement park, where you and your family can make cherishable memories getting up close and personal with some of the most spectacular marine animals. The animals seem to be higher energy and overjoyed during their performances. However, this is hardly the case, and the sad reality is these animals are just merely a shell of their wild counterparts. This inhumane captivity has its consequences, including multiple human and marine animal casualties. These animals were captured from the wild in brutal hunts, typically targeting pods of orcas and dolphins. Let's dive deep into the dark side of SeaWorld, where the screams of imprisoned marine animals echo behind the facade of family-friendly entertainment. We'll explore the brutal reality of animal abuse, captivity, and neglect, and uncover the sinister truth behind the park's claims of conservation and observation. Imagine this: you're a highly intelligent orca, hunting with your pod deep in the Pacific Ocean. Every day, you conduct coordinated hunts with your pod, led by your mother. You dive deep and travel for over 50 kilometers per day in the vast open ocean. You even sing and play games with your pod with intricate language unique to your family, only to be captured and isolated from your family, made into a circus animal for the rest of your life, never to see the open ocean again. This is the reality of many of the orcas captured by SeaWorld, imprisoned and forced to perform just for their supper, leaving behind their intricate lifestyles and family pods against their will. Just how did we get here? Well, for that, we need to travel back to 1964, when SeaWorld first opened its gates. SeaWorld was founded by 4 University of California graduates: Milton Shedd, Ken Norris, David Demott, and George Millay. They had a vision for an underwater restaurant. They quickly realized their vision for this underwater restaurant was not feasible, so they opted to make an ocean-themed amusement park instead, located in the newly created Mission Bay, located in San Diego.
The visions of a forward-looking plan must expand even more.
It was an instant success, attracting over 400,000 visitors in the first year of operation. Initially, the park only had a few animals, which included a few dolphins, sea lions, and 6 attractions. Just 1 year later, the first orca, Shamu, made their appearance at SeaWorld. She was captured by this guy, Ted Griffin. Ted Griffin dreamt of riding an orca and would do whatever it takes to achieve that dream, and that he did. Ted Griffin's first capture of an orca was Namu, but Namu died a year into captivity. Though he was devastated by the loss, he continued to capture and sell orcas well into the 70s. One of Griffin's most popular stunts was staging an accident with the orca, something that didn't age too well. SeaWorld approached Griffin to negotiate the purchase of an orca and wanted the rights to the name Namu, but Griffin refused to budge. Thus they agreed to name the new captive orca Shamu. Shamu was only 3 years old at the time of her capture. The capture was brutal, and the whalers harpooned her mother right in front of her eyes. The young orca refused to leave her dead mom's side. She was dragged away and sold to SeaWorld San Diego, where she was deprived of food in order to make her learn tricks and become the park's first performing orca. She performed until 1971, where a park employee was instructed to ride Shamu as a televised publicity stunt. When the park's secretary fell off Shamu's back, the orca clamped down her teeth on her leg and refused to let her go. Shamu eventually let go, after another trainer used a pole to pry her jaws open. Annette Akis, the park secretary who required more than 100 stitches, sued SeaWorld. Thus Shamu was retired from shows. Unfortunately, on August 29th of 1971, only after 6 years at SeaWorld, Shamu passed away with her unborn calf. At some point before her death, Shamu fell pregnant and died of a uterus infection. Her death did not stop the orca shows, and SeaWorld said her understudy Kilroy would continue with the show. Since its opening, SeaWorld has been caught in the crossfire of multiple controversies in the past few decades.
$2.7 billion. This is about money. And for more than a quarter of a century, it has spent its life going round and round in circles in a tank. The human equivalent would be sticking a human being in a bathtub.
Despite this, thousands of visitors still flock to the parks, eager to see the sea lions, orcas, and dolphins perform in the shows and displays. However, what they do not see is the abuse and torture that takes place behind the scenes. The parks have been known to use methods such as putting dolphins and orcas on Valium and withholding food as a form of punishment for not performing, all for the sake of monetary gain.
A lot of the animals are in fact on Valium, a lot of different psychotics.
What?
Yeah, tons.
What?
Yeah, tons. That is like rampant use in the aquariums.
What?
Yeah.
Valium.
This behavior is a clear demonstration of the lack of regard for the well-being of these highly intelligent and social animals, who are subjected to a lifetime of imprisonment for the entertainment of others. The true nature of SeaWorld as an evil and profit-driven entity is laid bare by its treatment of these magnificent creatures. SeaWorld presents the animal shows and displays through a combination of music and educational information, giving the illusion that they're conserving animals rather than exploiting them for monetary gain. Throughout the SeaWorld parks, you'll see signs displaying how committed they are to protecting and conserving animals worldwide, including multi-million-dollar pledges to fund research and conservation of orcas in the wild. So if they are so helpful in the conservation of animals, what's the deal with all the controversy? The release of the controversial documentary Blackfish brought significant attention to the treatment of orcas in captivity and the detrimental consequences of it. The documentary subsequently caused a massive shift in public opinion of SeaWorld, with attendance dropping significantly, resulting in a colossal 84% drop in profits at the time of release. Blackfish focused on Tilikum, an orca held captive by SeaWorld. The documentary highlighted the brutal and inhumane capture of Tilikum off the coast of Washington. They captured Tilikum due to his young age and small size, motivated by cheaper shipping costs. His whole family watched in despair as he was captured. One of the capturers described Tilikum's family sticking by his side despite being set free. They communicated with each other until the very moment they were separated. By the end of the hunt, 3 of the 4 whales had passed away in the nets. Tilikum eventually held up to the orca's classification as a killer whale by taking the lives of 3 different people. Who could have seen that coming? Why did SeaWorld think it was possible to domesticate such an animal? Surprisingly, there is no record of an orca attack on humans in the wild. However, the captivity and deprivation of their social and active lifestyles is believed to have led to immense psychological harm and eventually was the catalyst that led to Tilikum taking the lives of 3 different individuals, Kelty Lee Bine, Daniel P. Jukes, and the third and most well-known, Dawn Brancho, a veteran trainer at SeaWorld. The first violent incident didn't occur at SeaWorld, instead occurring at the public aquarium Sealand of the Pacific in British Columbia, Canada. On February 20th of 1991, Kelty, Tilikum's first victim, slipped and fell into the whale's pool while working a shift as a trainer. Witnesses recall hearing Kelty frantically screaming and panicking, realizing one of the whales, which was later identified to be Tilikum, was holding her foot and relentlessly dragging her underwater.
An employee is dead after an encounter
at a Canadian park called Sealand of the Pacific.
The Pan Pacific teams this summer, but my more immediate goal is just to swim fast at nationals.
According to the coroner's report, rescue attempts were prevented by multiple orcas in the tank, who refused to let go even after Kelty fell unconscious in the water. The cause of death was then ruled to be an accident. This catastrophic event led to the closure of the aquarium, and Tilikum was later sold to SeaWorld Orlando for performances and breeding purposes. Sealand of the Pacific claims they were not aware SeaWorld would use Tilikum for performances due to his violent nature and assumed he would only be used for breeding purposes. Daniel P. Jukes was the unfortunate second victim of Tilikum's violent attacks, and the details surrounding his death were perhaps the strangest. Early in the morning of July 6th of 1999, Daniel was found deceased and naked, draped across Tilikum's back. Despite the existence of numerous cameras at SeaWorld, Jukes managed to somehow evade all surveillance and eluded being seen by any of the SeaWorld observers involved with performing wellness checks around the clock. Jukes was discovered at 7:05 AM, and once paramedics arrived at the scene at 7:30 AM, Jukes sadly had no pulse or respirations. Jukes' death was eventually ruled to be an accidental drowning, although Jukes was painted to be an unstable person rather than a victim by the SeaWorld staff and the local media, due to his history of petty thefts and marijuana use. Jukes' parents followed with a lawsuit against SeaWorld, which was later dropped due to unknown reasons. The third and last victim of Tilikum is Dawn Broncho, a 40-year-old SeaWorld trainer. The veteran trainer was robbing Tilikum as a part of the post-show routine when the orca grabbed her and pulled her into the water. Witnesses reported seeing Tilikum grab Broncho by the arm and bite her arm off, and then swallowed it during the horrific attack. Broncho's autopsy indicated death by drowning and blunt force trauma. Her death resulted in a controversial legal case over the safety of working alongside orcas and the questionable ethics of keeping highly intelligent marine animals in captivity. During Tilikum's time at SeaWorld, his semen was used for artificial insemination to breed a number of captive orcas, including for SeaWorld's sister park in Europe, Loro Park, located in Spain. Tilikum and the other orcas at SeaWorld are kept in constrictive tanks which closely resemble a large pond rather than the vast ocean orcas typically thrive in. SeaWorld continued to attempt to train Tilikum and the other orcas even after these catastrophic deaths, with Tilikum returning to performing shows on March 30th of 2011, just 1 year after Dawn's tragic death. SeaWorld resorted to high-pressure water hoses to massage Tilikum rather than physical contact, and removable guardrails were installed on the platform surrounding him. He was commonly paired with his grandson, Troa, and was often seen performing alongside him during the finale of the One Ocean show. On occasion, he was kept with his daughter Malia, or both Troa and Malia at the same time. Troa and Malia are still seen performing today at SeaWorld Orlando, both with visible signs of captivity taking a toll on them. A classic example of this being collapsed dorsal fins, as they spend 70 to 80% of their time at the surface. SeaWorld claims the whales live longer in captivity, but the multiple deaths of orcas in captivity prove the claim otherwise, including the death of Kayla in 2019, a 30-year-old orca living in SeaWorld Orlando. It's not clear why Kayla died, as SeaWorld has not released the results of her necropsy. 77 orcas have been born into captivity since 1977, and according to the records of 2 databases maintained by cetacean experts, 37 of them, including Kayla, are now dead. Very few wild-caught orcas have lived past the age of 30, and no captive-raised orcas have ever lived past the age of 30, with Kayla being the oldest before her tragic death. Her wild counterpart is known to live well into their 50s, and even as old as 80 years old. So it is clear that there is a very real issue with keeping orcas in captivity. Captivity and deprivation is not all SeaWorld has to offer. There are allegations that SeaWorld sexually abuses their animals, particularly their dolphins, who are typically artificially inseminated via force into a female. This is not natural at all. Like orcas, dolphins are highly intelligent and social creatures who would have preference in their partners, just like me and you. During this process, they are heavily sedated and restrained. So with all these apparent issues with captivity, why are these animals still in prison today? SeaWorld claims that captive raised and born marine animals can never return to the ocean because they will be attempting to survive without their family pod and natural hunting skills, due to being fed by humans for the majority of their lives. This is simply not true. There has always been a better solution than keeping these animals in the human equivalent of a bathtub for their entire lives. A natural seaside sanctuary would be everything current captive tanks cannot provide. This includes a deeper diving area for the whales, substantially larger area, at least 100 times bigger than the current largest known performance tanks. This would mean they would still be taken care of 24/7 by veterinary support and care, as well as trainers that provide enrichment. These seaside sanctuaries include a sandy bottom that will be home to many critters such as crabs and small fish that the animals can interact with. These sanctuaries are netted in using buoys. While the whales have the ability to jump over them, Charles Vinnick, The executive director of the Whale Sanctuary Project claims they never do. SeaWorld has since recovered from the controversy caused by Blackfish and had consecutive growth as shown in their stock price, with a market cap of $3.73 billion at the time of this recording. SeaWorld is certainly not slowing down anytime soon. This concludes my video. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more quality content like this in the future.